The last video that had this example had cut off at the end, so I'm going to finish the proof, and this has been reference to the module from last week. So let's go ahead and prove not C using just the 8 rules of implication that we have already learned. Alright, so to begin with, we look at our conclusion and we see that we need to derive a not C. Well, we can see here that we have that not C on line 2 and line 1. So somewhere along the line, we're going to need to derive it from that one of those two lines. And the way we're going to have to derive that is using a rule that's going to involve some sort of manipulation of disjunctive statements here, because of course we have this little wedge that we'll need to get rid of along with the I in order to derive the not C. So let's just go ahead and start working our way through this. So we can see here that on line 1 we have this conditional statement, and on line 4 we have the identical antecedent to line 1. So let's go ahead and using lines 1 and 4 and the rule of modus ponens derive here I or not C. Okay? Alright, so the next particular step we're going to need to take then here is we're going to need to, we still haven't got to the point where we can derive this not C, so let's go ahead, since we already used these two lines, let's go ahead and just consider any other forms we see in the lines we currently have that are in action, basically. So here we have I or not C on line 5, and we can see here that that is identical to the antecedent on the conditional on line 2. So we can go ahead here and using lines 2 and 5, and using the rule of modus ponens, we can derive not D. So we've used these two lines here. And so now in the remaining lines that we have our not D, and then up here on line 3 we have the conditional I horseshoe D. Well, as we can see here, 6 is the negation of the consequent on line 3. So knowing our rules of implication here, we know that that is modus tollens. So we can use lines 3 and 6 and the rule of modus tollens to therefore derive then not I. Okay. So once again, it's always maybe a good measure to keep track of everything, to check off the lines that you've already used, but you may come back and use a line you've previously used. So again, our goal here is to get not C. Well, we can see here that we have the conditional, or excuse me, the disjunction already kind of isolated here on line 5, though we've already used line 5. We can see here with line 7 that what we have here is the negation of the disjunct here on line 5. And we know by our rule of disjunctive syllogism that if we have this negation here, we can therefore derive the other disjunct, which would be not C. So using the rule of, lines 5 and 7 and the rule of disjunctive syllogism, we can therefore derive then not C. And there we have proven the conclusion of not C here.